You know what you should do? You should follow me on Twitter at Bromo018. Link in the description. Do it now. Recently, I released a video about features in FIFA 19 career mode that make me angry. I mentioned in the video that I wanted to talk about the overall ranking system in FIFA, but that I was going to save it for a standalone. Well, today I want to talk about that. About why I believe the entire system that EA uses for ranking attributes and players in FIFA is completely flawed, to the point where we cannot possibly get fair and accurate ratings for players. I will also discuss the way in which I would go about revamping the system if I were EA Sports. On a side note, if you want to get cheap games and codes, then head over to cdkeys.com for all of the best deals. They offer all sorts of products at reduced prices. Use the affiliate link in the description to head over to the website and help support the channel out a little bit. Thank you. Back to the video now, and I first want to put forward my opinion on why the system is flawed. For those of you that don't know, the way EA Sports' data system works is that they have a load of volunteers, around 6,000 people who play FIFA. They will submit a point about why they believe an individual attribute for a certain player should be higher or lower, and will have to provide certain stats relating to the attribute from a certified stat provider like perhaps Who Scored or Opta in order to back up their point. From there, it will be reviewed by a data editor and they will either implement the change or will reject the suggestion. EA encourage you to compare the attribute rating of that player to another one in your feedback, so as to indicate whether you believe it should be higher or lower than the rating of that other player. I was actually a data reviewer a few years ago and provided this sort of feedback from my team, but soon realised that the system wasn't accurate and it would take too long for data editors to respond to my feedback. In my opinion, using these stats as your main point of reasoning is completely the wrong way to go about it. Now for me, I'm a film guy rather than a stats guy. What I mean by that is I prefer watching a player rather than judging him by his stats. Yes, statistics can be decent fillers, but that's about it. You can present all the data possible about a player to me. It makes no difference. I still prefer to see him play to form my own opinion of him. People say that the stats don't lie. Well, no, they don't, but they paint incorrect pictures. They don't tell the full story. This whole scheme of utilising stats as the best method of judging a player's rating is broken, in my opinion. Let me give you an example why. Let's say you're reviewing Barcelona and you're judging a player's work rate, i.e. high, medium or low. The way in which the data reviewers would tend to go about it is something along the lines of, well, Ousmane Dembele only covered this much kilometres during the previous 20 matches, and most of that was in the attacking half, so he must have a low defensive work rate. Bear in mind that Dembele does actually have a low rating on his defensive work rate in the game. Well, no, because what you aren't considering is that Barcelona completely dominated possession during that run of games and were camped in the opposition half, so he didn't need to track back. It makes no sense to give him that rating. I took a closer look at the attackers of both Barcelona and also Liverpool and noticed that only Coutinho and Firmino had a high work rate. This ultimately backs up my point. These are two teams with an extreme pressing mentality. As soon as they lose a ball, they're immediately closing down the man in possession to regain it. It doesn't matter what type it is, that's still defending. Whether you're regrouping in your own half or immediately counter pressing the man on the ball, it's defending because your team isn't in possession. These two teams work extremely hard in that regards. So how can they not all have high defensive work rates? Go and tell Jurgen Klopp that his attackers and midfielders don't work hard defensively and see what his response to that is. I don't believe you need to even look that deep into the rating system to see just how flawed it is. I mean, look at the Ronaldo and Messi situation. Messi is the highest rated player for years whilst he's the cover star of FIFA, when all of a sudden Barca signed a partnership deal with Pez, EA signed Ronaldo, and suddenly he's the highest rated player instead. I mean, come on guys. A rating system that is judged on marketing partnerships is absolutely broken in my opinion. To fix this issue, I believe the entire data reviewer system needs to be sacked off. If I was running this operation, I would instead bin off this style of review and implement a system where there would be a group of professionals. They don't necessarily have to have had a previous working experience in football, but they have to be proven professionals and fit the scheme which would be judged during the interview process. These would be dedicated to one club. So each club would have a group of these now EA scouts purely dedicated to judging each player fairly. They'd go to every senior game and throw in youth games as well, but would also go behind the scenes and scout training sessions as well to get an improved view of what the players are like in each respected role throughout the week. They'd compile their information using what they're seeing from the players each day. Yes, stats can be used alongside those to aid their research and decisions, but it's mainly what they themselves are seeing. Then, each decision with regards to ratings changes is agreed on through the committee of scouts for that one team. Whilst all this is happening, they would constantly be working with the data editing team at EA to keep it as up to date as possible and report back their information and findings. Now, I can imagine a stumbling block from EA being something along the lines of, well, how can we afford the salaries of all these scouts? My answer to that would be, well, Sports Interactive use a slightly similar system in which they have dedicated teams and country scouts that watch the games and go behind the scenes to the training sessions and even team meetings. So if they can afford it, then there's no excuse for EA. Plus, let me take you back to that talent scout image at the start. You'll see those 3 players on the front. Well, how about you don't pointlessly pay those people extortionate amounts of money to be partners when it adds no value to the game, and invest in something like this instead? I mean, they add no value. Having those 3 players as partners when you already have Ronaldo doesn't add any sales to the game. It's just a needless expense. So divert your expenditure to something that's useful, like this scouting system instead. For those of you that feel like my suggestion is perhaps also flawed, it's worth bearing in mind that the scouting database that Sports Interactive have formed for Football Manager is actually used by a lot of clubs as a scouting tool. That is a fact. You guys are welcome to look into that if you don't believe me. I know that this is the case for a lot of clubs that can't afford the scouting fees and don't have a global network available. This goes some way to proving the reliability of the system. If you have a group of professionals per football club, like in my suggested system, then you can only improve that method's reliability. Of course, you could say it's still open to interpretation and opinion, which it slightly still is, but that's why I believe having a group of professionals per club rather than one would make it a whole lot more accurate. So what do you guys think? Does the rating system need to be changed, or do you think that it works perfectly fine and doesn't need to be touched? Let me know in the comment section down below and I'll get back to you. Don't forget to check out the affiliate link in the description to head over to CD Keys for cheap games and codes. And give me a follow on Twitter as well, using the handle @Bromo018. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel for more regular gaming content. On that note, I'm Bromo18, and until next time guys.